First, it's time now for Brexit broker Nigel Farage. And Nigel found himself at the centre of another political storm this week. Simon Clarke dragged him into his bombshell Telegraph op-ed, calling on Rishi Sunak to leave Downing Street, arguing for change in leadership of the Tory party. Clarke said that our country, with all the challenges we face, is on the brink of being run by Keir Starmer's Labour. If Nigel returns to the fray, as looks increasingly likely, extinction is a very real possibility. Well, Simon Clarke let rip last night, and tonight Rishi Sunak has been hit by another damaging resignation. This time, his leading pollster, number 10 special advisor Will Dry, has quit with this scathing parting shot. Everyone in this country can see just how colossal the challenges we face are. Sadly, it became clear to me that we weren't providing the bold, decisive action required to overcome those challenges. And he goes on to say that, sorrowfully, the Conservatives are heading for the most almighty of defeats. Be in no doubt, we are on course for a decade of Labour rule. If Farage comes back, the Tory party essentially won't exist by Christmas. Nigel joins me now. What do you make of that?
The game's up, isn't it? I mean, all this argument that we're a broad church in the Conservative Party, the public have woken up to the fact that it's a broad church without a religion. They don't believe in anything. Nothing. They are liars, they are charlatans, they are spinners. And I'm personally particularly angry because in 2019, I did them the biggest favour ever. I got rid of Mrs May when they hadn't got the guts to. It was the Brexit Party, the European elections did that. I then pushed Boris to make sure we had the right agenda-ish for Brexit. I then stood aside in 320 seats and gave him a bye, effectively, in the general election. And the truth of it is, they put a manifesto to the British people in 2019 that they didn't believe in. It was a lie. The whole thing was a lie. They pretended they believed in Brexit. They pretended they'd cut immigration numbers. They pretended they believed in our borders. And actually, none of it was true. So I think what you're seeing from Will Dry tonight, and indeed Simon Clarke and others, is a realisation that the great British public will not forgive them. And whatever they think of me, on a personal level, there's a very large number of 2019 Conservative voters who said, you know what, that Farage bloke, like him or not, he's been consistent. He actually believes in what he says. And so they fear that if I was to return to the fray, they would suffer not just a loss.
Are you going to, Nigel? Are you going to then? I mean, the time is now, surely. Everyone's saying that you should do it if you want to wipe the Tories off the map.
The time is always now, Patrick. Yeah, of course. I don't know. I mean, I'm obviously slightly haunted by 2015. 4 million votes and one seat. You think, well, what was that all about? I look historically at Roy Jenkins and the SDP, and okay, it's 40 years ago, but the 83 election was really interesting. The SDP get 25.5% of the vote and 23 seats. Labour get 27.5% of the vote and 209. So do I want to throw myself at something, give up the much better, happier, more comfortable life that I have, and, by the way, enjoying being part of the broadcasting revolution at BBC News, which I genuinely have been day one. Do I want to give all that up if it's a futile attempt to break a system that can't be broken? And that's a really big consideration. I don't yet know the answer, but I feel it's as if the pressure is being put on me every day to do it.
Well, I mean, the pressure clearly has been put on you tonight by the bloke who Rishi Sunak literally paid to crunch the numbers to tell him how he was doing. And that guy says that if you decide to run, the Tories won't exist by Christmas. That must be tempting, no?
Well, of course it's tempting, Patrick, but I have to see positive outcomes. My job is not just to be simply a wrecking ball. I mean, everything I did in UKIP and the Brexit Party was about achieving a goal. And that goal was the independence of the United Kingdom, which I always believed was achievable. Now, I might have been in a very small minority in the early days, but I always thought we could do it. And you know what? We jolly well did. If I go back into politics now, the aim must be to win the general election after next. And I have to believe that's achievable. And I worry that our system makes it very, very hard to do. Look, I'm thinking about this day and night. I'm having this conversation the whole time. I'm working out what is the right thing to do. And, you know, if I say, yes, I'm going to do this, that's kind of effectively the end of my working life. So it's a very, very big decision.
The concern as well, presumably, Nigel, would be that if you do stand and you wipe the Tories off the map, then it is you who hands the keys to Downing Street to Keir Starmer, isn't it?
No, that's over already. That's done. That's done. You know, the idea that my intervention could cost the Tories the elections for the vote, they're going to lose heavily anyway. Starmer is going to win, but we need to have a credible opposition start that can come back and win the election after that. Now, the Tory party's been around in its current recognisable form since 1834. However, 100 years ago last week, Ramsay MacDonald became the first Labour Prime Minister, replacing a Liberal party who governed for much of the previous decade. So these very big changes can occur in British politics, but they are once in a century events. I've got to decide whether that is now.
Yeah, and as well, if we do end up with a Labour government, there are massive concerns about what's going on right at the heart of Whitehall, the kind of power behind the throne with our civil service. So bosses, which will come as a shock but also not a shock to people, chose, quote, a change of government as one of their top wishes for 2024. This is part of a word cloud activity. The general election was the other most popular response from the civil servants. These are the people who are supposed to be enacting the wishes of a government, OK? Any government, without fear or favour. This is the same civil service that nearly handed Gibraltar back to the Spanish, then got Dominic Raab sacked because he got a bit angry about that. Stonewall, a number of departments signed up to £5,000 a year diversity schemes. The Home Office also claimed that she had to, a Home Office official claimed that she had to work 10 times harder than white counterparts. There was a lot of talk about white guilt in the civil service. Their terror training basically focused on right-wing terror extremism and decided to essentially say that Islamic extremism in some way, shape or form might in some ways be justified. Gender-neutral prisons, they were big on that, all of that stuff. You know, the civil service is a massive problem, isn't it? They at the moment are desperate to have a Labour government, Nigel, it seems.
If you walk with me, Patrick, but I tell you what, we'll do this. If you walk with me one morning at Upper State down Whitehall, as the civil servants that still work in offices are coming in, you will see a tirade of foul-mouthed abuse against me that I wouldn't even get at a left-wing student union. And you begin to understand who the civil service are. We need to drain the swamp in this country. I'm not pretending this will be an easy battle. You know, Blair utterly politicised the whole thing 2 decades ago. The Conservatives have never had the guts. You know, Michael Gove talks about the blob, but he's never seriously fought it. We face gargantuan problem to get our country back on track. But you know what? Right now, no one's even trying.
No one's even trying. Nigel, look, thank you very, very much for coming on. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. Nice to see you back on fine form as well after a couple of days resting up with illness. Nigel Farage, the man himself.